Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of this Big East Conference match between the Seton Hall University Pirates and the DePaul Blue Demons here at the Prudential Center. Joining me is our analyst, Liam Harding. Liam, this was a 69-64 match, incredibly tight. What are your first thoughts?
It was a close game, but that's just typical of the Big East Conference as a whole. We see this time and time again. We upsetted UConn. The Pirates were able to have a close game against St. John's, turn into a blowout. The other day, Georgetown had a close one with UConn. So overall, that's just typical of the Big East. Close games, physical, not really high-scoring games. So it's very typical. I wasn't shocked, especially between the rivalry the past couple of years between DePaul and the Pirates. It's always close games, so it's very atypical of that.
We did see a very close game. However, this wasn't always the case, as we had mentioned after the first half. It took a while for Seton Hall to get back on their feet. Can we call Seton Hall at this point perhaps a second-half team, or a team that always does its best to keep it tight?
I'd say yes, Seton Hall is a second-half team or a team that keeps it tight, and that's just because of the very different things. The bench wasn't very consistent. In the past couple of games, the bench has done a whole lot better. Seton Holloway had this to say about the performance of the three bench players, Tay Davis, Jameer Harris, and Trey Jackson.
Tay and Trey and Jameer came in the game and gave us tremendous energy, made some hustle plays for us. We started moving the basketball a little bit and, just started getting back on defense. I thought early that we came out sleepwalking and so disappointed in that because this was a tremendous game for us, a big game, and guys, you can't start the game like that.
So it's because of the performance of the players on the bench we're able to stay in these games and make these second-half comebacks.
Now let's talk a bit about that offense that might have had a bit of a struggle. Kadari Richmond, he had 14 points in this match. How did he measure up to our pre-game predictions on him, particularly with Najoma Gibson of DePaul that had over 40% of scoring in his team?
So we said before the game that Kadari should be guarding Umoja Gibson. He's one of the better defenders on this team, but in actuality, Coach Seton Holloway called upon number 2, Alamir Dawes, to guard Umoja Gibson. So Richmond was really in charge of guarding the other guards, whether it was Cruz or Murphy out there. He was in charge of the other guard, the other ball handlers. So it's because of that. Defensively, he did very well. His players, the players he was guarding, for the most part, didn't really score that well. However, even though on paper, 14 points is a lot, he only was able to make 2 of his 8 shots, 100% from 3, though, and got to the stripe 9 out of 10 times, or 10 times and only made 9 of them. So overall, very complete performance because along with those 14 points, he had 6 rebounds and 4 assists. So I think it was another typical game for Kadari Richmond out here.
Interesting. Now, talking a bit more about that offense as a whole, you mentioned that the Big East is a very physical conference. Basketball is the Big East's main sport to begin with. How can Seton Hall prepare for physical teams outside of the Big East, especially with a possible tournament bid coming up?
I think just because the other teams play physical doesn't really necessarily mean it's been a problem. I mean, Seton Hall plays very physical. They have one of the top defenses in the country. Consistently in conference and out of conference, Seton Hall is able to hold their opposing teams under 60 points most games, 70 points, whereas you see a lot of things like that. So I think, just preparing, I think got offensively a little bit better. But overall, the team has changed a lot, and Tyrese Samuel actually had this to say about how far the team has come since the beginning of Big East play.
A completely different team, for sure. Back then, we were just kind of we're still new to each other. Also, a lot of the players were new to the Big East, so they didn't really understand it yet. But I feel like now everyone understands the Big East and how the fouls are called and just the hostility of the Big East. So I feel like everyone understands that now, and I just think that we're a completely different team. So it's gonna be a good game on Wednesday.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been it from the Prudential Center. Seton Hall 69, DePaul 64. Big East Conference play. I'm here with Liam Harding. I'm Christopher Benitez. Enjoy the day, and we look forward to having you soon.